When it comes to demand gen campaigns, we have all been lied to, and in this video, I want to expose the reality behind demand gen campaigns and show you the true face of them. Now, in my experience so far, and I've been able to run demand gen campaigns across 100 different e-commerce brands in the last year or so alone. Originally, if you don't know the history behind demand gen campaigns, they were actually early introduced to replace discovery campaigns as a way to show up on the Discover platform along with YouTube and Gmail placements. The only real difference was basically that these demand gen campaigns were introduced to be the performance max campaigns of Discovery Network. And what I mean by that is the only reason why performance max was introduced was so that it could be basically on steroids. It could act extremely profitably. It could use all this internal data which Google doesn't give us any insights into to become smarter on its own and then to eventually scale your brand to the next level. This was the main intention behind demand gen campaigns in the early process as well. However, in my opinion so far, demand gen campaigns ended up being a big failure for many brands. Now, here's a few reasons why it didn't really live up to its hype. Number one, the Performance Max campaign asset group section, which allows you basically to add all these assets in, images, logos, headlines, etc. Well, that's technically the same thing as what a demand gen campaign does for the same placements. So if you're already running Performance Max campaigns with all of those things introduced, there's technically no real reason to even be running demand gen campaigns. And I mean, if we just look at some of the results right here of running demand gen campaigns for these brands, we can see overall we have been able to spend a decent amount of money throughout these demand gen campaigns, discovery campaigns, etc. But overall, the return on ad spend, the profitability has never been there. I mean, the highest profitability for one of these demand gen campaigns was a 1.59x. That was at an $800 ad spend level. So technically, these campaigns were never really introduced to make you as an e-commerce brand any type of money, which brings me to the second thing, which is demand gen campaigns never really ended up being smarter than their counterpart discovery campaigns, which they were introduced to replace. And this is because, again, we go back to the fact that demand gen campaigns, it's in the name itself, demand gen, which means demand generation. It's trying to generate demand for your brand via brand awareness, which is exactly what a discovery campaign does. So technically, you're giving Google Ads money just to show your ad to a bunch of people who might just want to learn about your brand or who might be in the market looking for similar products, and then they just happen to come across your brand. It's a campaign type designed to make Google Ads money, period. There is no sort of win for an e-commerce brand owner besides the fact that now you're just getting a bunch of impressions, you're showing your ad to a bunch of people. And if that's your main goal, by the way, if you want to basically have more brand awareness, get more people to see your brand, then by all means demand gen is the perfect approach there. But for a lot of brands, which this brings me to the third thing, a lot of brands, they don't really want to focus on just the branding aspect of things. They don't want to just be focusing on awareness. There's not many brands out there which are ready to sacrifice their return on ad spend just to generate brand awareness or just to generate demand around the brand itself and not lead to any real results or any real purchases. So that's why demand gen campaigns really end up becoming a big failure. They're just kind of there as a way to entice you to now basically spend your own money, spend your ad spend, and make Google Ads more money at the end of the day. But here's the thing now, demand gen is not something that should completely be eradicated from your ad strategy. And that's because there's still different alternative strategies you can be implementing to eventually make demand gen work. Now, first things first, of course, if your main goal is brand awareness, you're in the stage where you're making enough profitability, your Google Ads strategies are so good that you don't really care if the ROAS drops a little bit, then by all means, spend about 5 to 10% of your budget on a daily basis on demand gen campaigns. That's going to get you a lot of brand awareness. It's going to get your other campaigns a lot of good data. But if you're not at that level yet, if your goal is not brand awareness only, you want to stick to display and performance max campaign asset section. Those are much better approaches to be taken besides just a demand gen campaign. Alternatively, one of the best approaches which we are starting to take for a lot of the brands we handle under my agency, Your Marketing, which by the way, if you run a brand doing $1 million a year, you need extra help scaling to the next level with Google Ads, go onto my website at yourmarketing.com and schedule a free call with me to see essentially how we can work together and make that happen. But the alternative strategy we're implementing is we're running demand gen campaigns on $5 a day to $10 a day budget to get a ton of quick data. this quick data is then going to allow our other campaigns to now start becoming smarter, to start becoming much more profitable at a faster pace. And that means we are now going to be able to optimize those other campaigns fairly quickly too. So we're just running demand gen campaigns as a very, very small portion of our budget, of our overall strategy at $5 to $10 a day only. And that's going to be very effective regardless of whether, your main goal is brand awareness or not, because $5 to $10, almost every brand should have that much money to just waste on Google Ads. You're not technically wasting it at that level. You're just using it to generate faster data and more data for your brand as a whole. But again, if you run a brand doing $1 million a year, you need extra help scaling to the next level, go onto my website at yourmarketing.com and schedule a free call with me to see essentially how we can work together and make that happen. But check out this little case study I did where I exposed a brand who scaled to $200,000 a month in revenue just with Google Ads alone.